about what needs to be done in every particular speech or every particular debate or in respect to every kind of motions, but rather this particular session is mainly to just give you an introduction of what APD is, what Asian Parliamentary Debate is, and how you should approach it, and how different speaker roles look like, and those roles are supposed to do. So it is very introductory session because your whole boot camp is basically one long boot camp, and then you have your autonomy. So in the next sessions that we will have in the next days, those sessions will be able to more about debating in general, more about motion, frame arguments, how to excel your speeches. But this particular session is mainly about what the format looks like so that when you understand the format, you do not confuse this format with MUNs, which are very popular among schools, or any particular other kind of speech format. You understand how Asian parliamentary debate format is different than other. So that is the main aim for today's session. So let's begin with Asian parliamentary debate. Asian parliamentary debate is a team versus team format, meaning two teams participate in one round. Each team has three members, and the team is decided by you yourself. You can basically form your team with your friends before the tournament even starts, and then register along with your team. So it is a team versus team format, government versus opposition. The first team is called government, the second team is called opposition. The other names for it could be like support versus oppose, favor versus oppose, or proposition versus opposition. Remember, whenever I say the word government or opposition, I do not mean the real life government and opposition. So you are not actually representing any real life government or any real life opposition. You are just government for this motion, meaning you are just the supporting alliance or supporting team for this motion. Let's say, for an example, if the motion is this house would uh, like whatever could be example like this house would not ban plastic, or for example this house would attack USA. This does not mean that you are Prime Minister Modi and you will have to give a speech as Modi telling us why you will attack USA, but rather you are just a person, a average human being who is supporting this motion and giving your own logical reasoning to why you will attack USA. So just remember that you are not real life government or opposition like in MUNs. You are not representing anyone. You are just representing your own team. You do not have any moral burden like the real life Prime Minister Modi has or whoever has. It is not MUNs. It is a very different kind of thing. Asian parity debate is not an impersonation, but rather a self representation. You are just representing your own team. So next thing that you need to know is each speeches are of 7 minutes. There are total 6 speeches plus two reply speeches. So in total there are 8 speeches in a debate, but 6 of them are 7 minutes, and then reply speeches are of 4 minutes. Now there's a POI, very much similar to what happens in MUNs. In debates, there are also a POI, which is point of information, which can only be asked between the first and the 6th minute. Meaning, when a speaker is speaking, you cannot ask a POI in the first and the last minute. Only between those minutes can be asked a POI. So you can read that in total 6 speeches per team, but 8 per debate. How? Because there are total 6 speeches of 7 minutes and 2 speeches of 4 minutes, which is reply speeches. We will discuss more about it in further of the session. So no need to worry about what these terms are. What is reply speech? What is POI and why 7 minutes and why 4 minutes? We will discuss more on that later. So when you get a motion, you get a 25 minutes prep time. Why 25 minutes? Because that is very much essential for you to prep along with your team and be able to make a case which aligns with each other, meaning your first speaker does not says something completely different and completely on the other words what your other teammates were going to say. So you have a very teamwork kind of prep time, so that every team member of your team can input their points, can input their thoughts and what they want to talk about, so that there's some sort of discussion and planning before the speeches even begin. So in total, there's 30 minutes of prep time, out of which 5 minutes is given for motions and 25 minutes is given for preparation of the motion. Uh, the prep time, we will discuss more about that in further of session, so no need to worry about that either. Mainly that you need to understand is the speaker order and speaker roles. The speaker order of an Asian parliamentary debate is as such. There are total 8 speeches, as I said earlier. PM is basically Prime Minister, LO is Leader of Opposition, DPM is Deputy Prime Minister, DLO is Deputy Leader of Opposition, GW is Government Whip, OW is Opposition Whip, OR is Opposition Reply, and lastly, GR is Government Reply. All these speakers on the left-hand side are of the same team. All the speakers on the right-hand side are of the same team. Left-hand side is the government, right-hand side is the opposition. Now let's see the order of the speeches. As you can see, there are some numbers written besides of these speaker roles. The first speaker is obviously the Prime Minister. Second is LO, which is Leader of Opposition. Third is DPM. Fourth is DLO. Fifth is Government Whip. Sixth is Opposition Whip. Till now, it is very zigzag manner of speaker order. One is coming after the another. First the government, second the opposition, then the government, then the opposition, then the government, and then lastly the opposition. Then why is it so that the opposition reply comes before the government reply? It is because the government started this debate, and that is why the government will end this debate, because the government will have an extra chance to defend their case, and they will give the final statement because they are the ones who presented this motion at the first place. Just like in the parliaments, the government is the one who proposes the motion, and that is why the government is the one who is giving the last speech to give a contributory statement or a conclusion to this debate and end this debate. So that is why the opposition reply comes in seventh, and then lastly, the government reply comes in eighth. So till now, this is a very brief introduction to the order of speech. If you have any doubts till now, ask very quickly. Don't ask questions which are about what the speaker roles are, because that we will discuss in further of this session. Only ask question related to this PDF till what you have read till now.
The government does the government give the first speech, or does the opposition give the first speech? I'm sorry, it was unclear.
The government gives the first speech. As you can see, the number one is written beside the PM. Himadri is asking what is
Uh,
the ranking of motions. Ranking of motions is a concept which we will talk more about in the further of session. You'll now just think it of as something which decides which motion we are going to talk about.
Can you please
Yes,
explain
Diksha.
what is POI? Can you please explain what is POI?
POI is a point of question that you ask to the currently speaking speaker as a question. You raise your hand and then ask them a question that you want them to answer.
Thank you.
We will talk more about POIs in further session. Yes, Shreya.
Yes, sir. My doubt is that as it was written that every debater has 7 minutes of speech, so we have like so about the preparation time limit. I just wanted to ask that how will the POIs be asked? You said that it will be like in between of the speech, so I'm a bit confused at that. So do we have to like answer the POIs at the end as a reply speech for of 4 minutes?
N- No, no. So, for example, I started my speech and my 7 minutes timer has begun. Now it's been 1 minute since my speech has started. My opponents can now start asking any POI. They can simply raise their hand, and if I want to answer that POI, if I want to take a POI, I can say that, okay, accept your POI, you can ask your question. Then they ask their question, and even after then, after hearing that question, I have the right to either answer that question or just reject that question simply. So that is up to me. And on the moment my speech reaches the 6th minute, that's the moment no new PYs can be asked. So PYs can simply be asked in the first to 6th minute, in between of that only, not in the first and not on the last minute. I hope that
Okay, sir.
clears the answer.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
sir.
you,
Got it.
sir.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Are there any
So like
doubts from anyone else?
when we are answering the POIs, the timer is still on.
Yes, the timer is still on. When they are asking a POI and when you are answering the POI, in both the moments, the timer is still going on. The timer never
Okay.
pauses during a debate.
Okay. Okay.
Just one
How
song.
exactly do we like interrupt for an POI because doing a speech?
If it is an online debate, then you simply raise hand or write on the chat that you would like to ask a POI.
Sir, what was the time
Or
limit
if
for
it is an
POI?
offline debate, I will answer that later. If you have, if you're in an offline debate, then you can simply raise your hand and say POI. So there's a different ways, but you're not allowed to heckle the speaker. You're not allowed to say different words that, hey, please ask my POI. You cannot interrupt the speaker. You can just raise hands very respectfully. The time limit of a POI is 15 seconds. So your question should be concise and very short.
Okay, sir.
You're not
Thank you,
allowed
sir.
to give a story while asking a POI. It should be very direct questions.
Does rejecting a POI deduct any marks, or does rejecting or not taking a POI just not have an impact on the marks?
Um, in APDs, there's no negative marking. So even if you do reject something, even if you do not ask for anything, or even if you do not present something, there's no negative marking. There's only positive marking concept in a APD. So basically, when you start your speech, your score is 0 marks. The more you input, the more you do your job right and give a great speech, maybe ask a POI, maybe answer a POI, maybe do something in the debate, the more your score increases. So there's no negative marking, there's only positives. So if let's say your speech was a 75 score speech, and but you do answer a POI, you take a POI, then your score can increase by 1. It will not have any negative marking, only positives. Before any verbal question, there are a lot of questions on chat. Does it create any impact on the judgment of your performance if you accept or reject POS? Himadri, no. Like, it can create a conception on the mind of judges that you're not confident enough to defend your case, and that is why you're rejecting POS. But still, not major impact, but it is recommendable to take POIs and answer POIs because it shows that you are confident enough to defend your case and you are confident enough to answer any questions that the opposition has. The opposition team could also do it several times to distract the speakers. Yes, the opposition, any team, be it the government or the opposition, can ask each other a POI, and there's no limit of how many POIs you can ask. And now, yes, to distract the speakers, they can ask multiple POIs. So how to prevent it? Basically, say that you will only accept one POI, nothing beyond that. Or let's say if you do not want to accept any POIs, you can simply say that I won't be taking any POIs. And then you can continue your speech easily because there's no compulsion to accept a POI when it is asked. If a speaker exceeds a time limit due to the POIs, will there be negative marking? Uh, if a speaker exceeds the 7 minutes time limit just because they wasted a lot of time while asking POIs, there's no negative marking, but anything said beyond the 7th minute will still not be credited. So it is better for you to end your speech the moment 7 minutes reaches. Can POIs be asked in rights to reply speeches? No, a reply in on reply speeches, you cannot ask any POIs because the reply speeches are already very short. They are just 4 minute speeches. So that is why no POIs can be asked during the reply speeches. Any verbal questions? Yes, Shreya.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to clarify that APD is basically like a normal debate. Only just the difference is the the POYs and the speech limit, or are there any more? I have a confusion.
APDs is just a type of debate. It is a team versus team debate. So the format is different, but at the very crux of it, the concept of debating still relies within the APD. So everything else stays the same. Different
Okay,
rules
sir.
and regulations only.
Okay,
Yes,
sir. Got
Arjun?
it.
So as you had said that, if we can say that no, I would not take any POI and then I'll take only 1 hour later. So does it create a bad impression on the judge, leading to the reduction of marks?
Again, no. Nothing creates a bad impression in front of judge. Only a perception is changed. So if when you are saying that you will ask a POI later, it is actually a positive sign that you have a plan of how your speech is going to look like. You know that you will take a POI in later on during a speech, so it will not create any negative impact.
Okay, so it's better to take POIs only after you end your speeches.
It is better to take POIs during your speeches. It is recommended. You cannot take any POIs after your speech ends anyway. So yeah,
If my speech ends and I still have 1 minute left, so I can take POI in that time, right?
not during your last minute.
Okay.
Yes, Siddharth.
Yes, so I couldn't hear you when you said what GW or OW is. So could you just tell me what that is?
GW is government whip, the third speaker of your team. OW is opposition whip, the third speaker of opposition's team.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Kar.
Sir, what is the full form of GR and OR?
Government reply and opposition reply.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, Rian.
So, in a 7 minute speech, around how much information do we need to give? Is it that we have to speak for 7 minutes constantly, or will any marks be deducted if we speak for any less or any more?
Okay, what do you need to speak in those minutes? We'll talk more about that in the further of this PDF because there are a lot of slides.
Okay, thank you.
Now, in terms of your time limit, the 7 minutes is just an upper limit. There's no lower limit. So you can simply just speak 5 seconds and just go. There will not be anything. No one will be running behind you. But obviously, remember, the more you talk, the more marks you might get. Not guaranteed, but yes, chances of getting good marks increases with the amount of material you present in front of the judge. Yes, Prajit?
Sir, in OR and GR, uh, which person in the team will give the OR and GR? Is it compulsory that PM will give the GR or anyone can?
Okay. So basically, as you can see, there are total 8 speeches, but only 6 people, meaning only 6 people are participating in a round. So who is going to give the seventh and the eighth speech? Basically, they can be anyone but your third speaker. Who is your third speaker? Who gave your GW or OW speech? So let's say for the side of government, GR can be given by either PM or DPM, but cannot be given by who? The web. The web cannot give GR. Same goes for the opposition. OR can be given by LO and DLO, but cannot be given by their web speaker, who is opposition web.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Shanvi.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, after getting a reply to our POI, are we allowed to ask for follow-up questions?
No follow-up questions are allowed within APDs.
Uh,
Although you can ask your next POI as a follow-up question, but remember the gap between two POIs should be at least 15 seconds. Sorry, 20 seconds.
Okay.
Yes, Sharon.
Sir, my question was that are there like each person gets only one POI? Is that the case?
No, there's no limits. There's no criteria as such. Cool. We will take further more questions later. Let's begin with the first speaker roles, which is Prime Minister and Deputy, sorry, Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition. Now remember, these two people have very similar roles for their respective teams. The PM is the first speaker of the government. The LO is the first speaker of the opposition. They have very, very similar roles, except one point. So let's talk about the commonality between these two speakers, the common features of these two speakers. The first thing that they have to do is set a stance and identify the burden of government or the opposition, if you're the opposition side. What is stance and what is burden? Stance is basically what their team is defending and what their team is proposing or supporting. Same goes for the opposition, what their team is opposing, what their team have a stance as, and what they're standing against. Second, the burden. The burden of each of the teams can be identified using what is something that is the problem existing in the society and how the arguments that your side is presenting is solving those problems or at least catering to those problems or at least talking about those problems in a somewhat manner. For example, if the motion is this house would ban single-use plastic, the burden on government is that the problem with plastic is basically environmental issues, recyclability problems, and whatever not. Okay. So the government burden has that if we ban it in somewhat manner, the environment will be solved and recyclability will be improved. And that is why if the government is able to prove that the banning of plastic is going to have a better environment, the government wins this debate. But the burden of opposition could be like single-use plastic is something where which our society is dependent upon. Single-use plastic is very much important for us manufacturing industry or a market to stand upon and to have a stable environment. And secondly, single-use plastic is not the major contributor to the plastic pollution, but rather like the manufacturing industry, which is using non-single-use plastic, is something which is concerning. And they can simply say that banning something won't work. Environment will still be bad in this scenario. So they can present alternatives. They can present an alternative way to tackle environment. That is their burden of proof. That is their burden to tell us how that is going to happen, how banning plastic won't help in somewhat manner, whatever those manners will be. So that is the first thing that each of these speakers do. The second thing that they have to do is defining the motion. Now, defining the motion brings a lot of things along with it. Uh, like first thing that defining a motion could be like um, giving a context of this motion, like what this motion is about. So when I'm talking about banning plastic, single-use plastic in particular, the context of this motion is that I can tell how worse the dependence of human civilization on plastic is increasing year by year, and how the policies of the government is not helping. I can talk about how European countries banning single-use plastic has somewhat, in somewhat manner, helped those countries to decrease their pollution. I can also talk about how Southeast Asian countries have a very non-supportive policy, and that is why they have a very huge pollution case in their country, where just because, let's say, Philippines do not have any law against the single-use plastic, they have a very huge piles of mountains of plastic piling up in their country year by year. So I'm just giving a context of what the world looks like and what the problems are when we talk about or when we talk in respect to plastics. And then I can define the motion by saying that what plastics are, what single-use plastics are, defining what those things are. Secondly, what banning looks like, how this banning will look like, basically that every single person cannot produce this kind of plastic. Every single manufacturer cannot build anything using this plastic. Every single consumer cannot buy this plastic. So that is how the banning would look like. All these things comes within the range of defining the motion, which is basically giving a context, giving a definition of the keywords within the motion, which is plastic, which is banning, and then simply telling us how it is going to look like. Now, there are two more things that you do while you are doing this. The first is status quo, which is very similar to context. The second thing is stakeholder. Now, status quo is basically the current scenario of the world when we talk in respect to this motion. How the world looks like, how people look like when they are using plastic. We can talk about their dependence with plastic and how environment looks like. We can talk about several things which comes under the status quo, like basically the current scenario of the world and the stakeholder. Now, stakeholders are basically things which are impacted by this motion. Now, stakeholders could look like first thing that comes in my mind who will be impacted by this banning or this motion are the people. Like they are the consumers, right? This I can tell reasons onto why they are one of the major stakeholders, why they are being impacted in the largest amount. Then I can talk about the second stakeholder, who could be the corporations and the manufacturing industry or the companies in general. Then I can give reasons on to why they are one of the stakeholders, and then I can tell the another stakeholder, which could be the environment. Another stakeholder could be the government because their taxation will be affected. So there could be any kind of stakeholders. Stakeholders are not supposed to be just living beings. Their non-living things can also be stakeholders, like environment, like companies, like government, because these are bodies or non-living things, but not a human being, right? So yeah, stakeholder analysis is very important within a debate because that helps the judge understand who will be affected by your motion and why your side is much more beneficial for them in comparison to your opponents. Now, the fourth point that you see is outlining the model or proposal, if any. That is basically what your banning is going to look like, what kind of products will be banned, how, what will be the like penalty if someone outlaws your banning. Like, so you can simply state a couple of points telling us what that particular law is going to look like. Now, remember, the model or proposal only comes in some kind of motions, not every. In a motion like this house prefers dog over cat, you do not have to give any model, right? Because there's nothing, no action is being taken place. You're just trying to prove why dogs are better than cats. So only in motions where an action is being taken place is where a model or a law or a proposal is required. Else, you can only talk about the principles. Let's say dog versus cat motion. You can talk about why dog is better than cat, what are the reasons, what are the arguments. So there's no need of any model or proposal. Lastly, substantive argumentation. Now that is basically giving an argument. I know PM and LO has a lot of roles, and that is why we do not expect them to give a lot of arguments, although we do expect them to give at least one argument. So that is why it is recommended for you to give at least one argument during your first speeches. The only difference here comes in for the LO. Yes, Aryan, I will do that. For LO, the only difference in respect to PM is that they can rebut. Now, what is rebutting? Rebut is basically giving an answer, a cross answer to what the PM said, or maybe trying to find any loopholes that the PM had, maybe trying to ask a very direct question to the PM, or maybe just telling the judges how whatever the PM said is wrong, if you have any sort of reasoning to that. That is what a rebuttal is. No, why LO can rebut, and why PM cannot rebut. Like PM cannot rebut because for a simple reason, no one talked before him, right? So what will he rebut? Rebutting is basically answering to something else, which was already pre said by someone else. So that is why LO can rebut, but PM cannot. But all the subsequent speakers from here on, be it Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader of Opposition, whip speakers can rebut because obviously someone has spoken before them. So that is why they can rebut. Although PM can still rebut in a very smart way, which is called a preemptive rebuttal. Basically, it is if you have a prediction that you already know that it is very much predictable that the opposition will talk about certain things, then you can give a preemptive rebuttal for it. For example, you can say that as a prime minister, I'm speaking that, hey, I know that the opposition will come and say that single-use plastic is not that much detrimental to the environment and banning it will only put pressure on the consumers. But still, the banning is very much necessary because single-use plastic has no recyclability, and that is why we believe that due to those particular reasons of how it can decrement environment on a very daily basis, and it takes taking centuries to uh, degrade within the soil, it is a very good reason to ban it, even if it puts some sort of pressure on consumers or companies. So I just gave a preemptive rebuttal because I know, because I predict, because I hope that the opposition will talk about this thing because it is very like very predetermined that yes, the opposition will talk about certain things because you already know, because you are also debaters, you know what your opponents will talk about till at least somewhat manner. You know you can predict it very easily. Okay, before we move on with the second speaker roles, I will take questions. Um, Please re-explain burden. Aryan, burden is a very advanced concept of an APT. I prefer you all not to understand the word burden on this session itself because it will not be easy. It is basically the hardest concept within APT, which takes time to understand. And I think the furthermore sessions that we'll have in the furthermore days will help you understand it in much more better way because it will, I can explain you guys that, but it will take me 15 to 30 minutes to explain that. And that will just take away 33% of today's session for that only. And this session being an introductory session, it's not something I would prefer because some people will not understand burden as of now. Okay. The next question is can allow rebut if between no rebut not you cannot say anything between someone is speaking. Only POIs can be raised. So LO cannot rebut while someone else is speaking or while PM is speaking. Is a debater allowed to use a pre-prepared script and read through it completely, or is it some amount of pressure? Okay, in an online debate, no one is seeing you, so obviously you can read through your pre-written speech. But remember, during an offline debate, also during that you can do it. But still, again, never ever generate your speeches using an AI chatbot because it is very easy for the judges to identify any speech that is made from the internet or that is being recited from an internet because it is very easy to identify, right? Like if I start reading from internet, you guys can simply catch it. You guys will identify it within a second. So don't do it because if you do it, you do read from an internet source or a chat GPT, it will deduct your point or maybe even put equity against you and you will be disqualified. What exactly is a rebuttal? How do we do it? Rebuttal is basically a counter argument or a counter answer that you have that against your opponents. It could be a question, it could be a loophole that you saw, a flaw that you find on their case, or any answer that you have against them. Like for an example, as I used the example of plastic should be banned, I gave an argument from the side of government about environment. Now you being opposition, can come in and give a rebuttal that environment is being mainly harmed because of greenhouse gases or whatever you must have researched during your prep time. Now, this is a rebuttal, right? You can say that what the government is sounding like single-use plastic is the major like flaw within environmental crisis, but it is not true. It is very, very small contributor to environmental crisis, and banning it will only worsen the situation, not better it. So that looks like a rebuttal, right? I am trying to find flaws in their case. I'm trying to tell you how their argument is not true, and what they said is basically being biased or manipulating the facts. Uh, when can a rebut be held? You can give a rebuttal within your speech whenever you want to. Like I can start with the rebuttal when my speech starts, or I can end with the rebuttal, or I can give a rebuttal in between my speech. You can basically modify the order of your speech as the way you want. You can define a motion at the very first minute. You can give stakeholder analysis at the very first minute. It is very customizable, but as everyone has their own way of presenting their speech. Could you explain motion ranking? Arjun, that will be done afterwards. If the opposition does not talk about the point answered by the PM in the preemptive rebuttal, would that in any way affect the marks? No, it will not affect the marks in any way, but it will only give the PM a positive score because the PM was able to tell us how that preemptive rebuttal is actually working. Obviously, you cannot simply talk about rubbish that we are just talking about random preemptive rebuttal. The preemptive rebuttal that I gave is somewhat very much relevant to this motion, and that is why it could bring a positive point for me. So do not talk about single-use plastic is bad because it is ugly, because how is it relevant? I don't care that single-use plastic should be banned because it is ugly. If although if you're able to prove me that, why should I care? Then maybe I will give you a great point. Can you explain, define the motion point? Defining the motion is basically defining the key terms, giving a context to a debate, telling what the status quo looks like, who the stakeholders are. Defining the motion is basically define the key terms. The key terms of a motion is the definition of the terms within a motion that people should understand, judges should understand, so that they understand the debate at large very easily. The motion example that I gave was very simple. Now, if a motion is like this house prefers environmental conservation over environmental harm or degradation. Now, you will have to tell me a definition of what environmental conservation is, what environmental degradation is, or you will also have to give me a definition of what prioritizing something over something means. Because when you prioritize something over something, you give your time, the excessive amount of your time to something over the other. So a lot of keywords are there, a lot of things lie within the motion that you will have to define and tell the judges what it looks like. So I have a question like I did not get how the L1 PM can rebut and when it can be held further. PM can give preemptive rebuttal within their speech. LO can give a rebuttal to the PM within their speech. Rebuttals cannot be asked directly to the other person. It can only be given within your speech. But if you still have a very great question that you want to ask while the other person is speaking, you can ask it by the means of a POI. Defining the motion for the opposition. Uh, when the PM comes in, they must have given a definition. The opposition can either accept that definition. Basically, if the PM was able to define what is plastic, what is banning really well, then you can simply accept the definition. You can say that we believe that the PM was able to give a good definition and we accept it. Or you can reject it by saying that, let's say, single-use plastic का definition PM ने बहुत गलत दिया. Like PM just came in and said a very, very vague definition of single-use plastic. Then you can say that their definition is flawed and Oxford definition of single-use plastic is blah blah blah, whatever it is. So yeah, that is what an acceptance and rejection of a definition looks like. So I had a doubt. Could you clarify that? Is it okay if we suppose being a leader of a vision, can we give away a minute or almost base my entire speech on arguments? Um, I won't suggest you being a leader of a vision to entirely base your arguments or your speech on what PM said because you still have your own role, right? You still have to identify the burden of government, sorry, opposition. You still have to set your own stance. You still have to define the status quo and stakeholders for the opposition side. You still have to give a counter model. You still have to give your own argument and rebut the PM. So try to organize your speech in a way that you are able to do all those job roles, not just single one of it. To make a speech, we must refer different websites and links. Is even that prohibited? You can refer to internet only for research basis, where we are researching either the definition of something that you do not understand or statistics. If you want some sort of data, some sort of stats, like how much is plastic harming the society, what is the rise, how that rise is looking like. But you cannot, you can never make arguments. Are not allowed to make speeches using internet. Only use it as a source of help, a source of research, never a source of forming your speeches or your arguments. How is rebut different from a POI? A rebuttal is extensive in nature. A rebuttal can be basically a lot of sentences, a lot of time. But a POI is a direct question, a very concise question of a 15 minutes, sorry, 15 seconds time limit. So if you talk about stakeholders, you said it can be something non-living. Yet, should it be something very closely concerning and affecting the human society? Not necessarily. Like, um, a stakeholder can be anything. It should be just be concerning with the motion. If a motion is talking about something which is not even concerning and affecting the human society, that still can be a stakeholder. For example, in a very hypothetical situation, a motion could be like, this house believes that Iron Man should have killed, uh, no, sorry, Iron Man should not have killed Thanos and Thanos should have won. That is the motion. Now, it is not affecting the human society. It is a very fictional motion. So, who are the stakeholders? Iron Man is a stakeholder. Thanos is, the Avengers is a stakeholder. MCU is a stakeholder. Like a lot of things are a stakeholder. Nothing is related to the human society. uh, Thanos being killed by Iron Man is the main crux of and the main concerning part of this motion. So yeah, it could be anything. Like, can we strawman fallacy for rebuttals? No, you're not allowed to strawman. Can rebuttals be given between a speech? Yes, only between your speeches, not while someone else is speaking. You cannot ask rebuttal as a form of POI. So as you said that PM and DPM can give the GR, so it is necessary that it should be either PM or yes, it should be either the PM or DPM. The GW cannot give GR. Can you make no straw manning is allowed within debates? So basically, PM they are addressing the topic and giving their own opinions and about the opposition first because from what I could understand, we have to give our opinions and criticize based. Um, how will we get time to do that? You have 7 minutes. You have to plan well. I mean, I cannot give you more time just because you will have an extra role of rebutting too. Can you explain rebuttals? Rebuttals is basically a reply, a flaw that you are finding in the case of government, a answer you want from them, a reasoning and analysis that you have to prove how their argument is wrong or worse than yours, or should not stand or should not be credited or considered by the judges. That is what a rebuttal should look like or could look like. It is an engagement that you do with the government. Which websites are considered reliable? Uh, Depends on the motion. Like if the motion is something related to United Nations, then I will prefer to research on United Nations. But remember, APDs are not like MUNs. So you do not have to source anything. You do not have to present me a lot of statistics because as an APD, logical arguments and logical reasonings always stand over statistical arguments or statistical data. So try to use your prep time for logical reasoning rather than statistical research. Is giving a model means that we can do what you can do and how we can do. Yes, Kumar, what you will do and how you will do. That is the right wording. How should we start asking a POI? Basically, raise your hand, or then whenever they accept a POI, start with the question itself. Don't give any story. It should be 15 seconds direct question. If our opponent is using some logical fallacy and say a slippery slope, could we call it outright? That no, you cannot simply call out anything right there. You can call it out during your own speech, during your own time. Or you can, yes, you can call out it using a POI. Please re-explain Strawman. I would not like to explain Strawman because strawmanning is not allowed. So yeah, do not do it. If you want to know what strawmanning is, it is, you can Google it. And simply what strawmanning is basically trying to misunderstand what your opponents are saying just for your own selfishness. Rebuttals are by the first speakers of the opposition. Rebuttals can be given by anyone, not just the first speaker of the opposition. So I still have doubts about the difference for POI and rebut. Um, POI and rebuttal, the difference between it will be given in the further of session. Do emotions and ethics hold importance? No, nothing in APDs have a greater importance than the other. Who ask a POI? Anyone ask a POI. Only your own team members cannot ask a POI against yourself. So if I'm PM, my DPM and my government web cannot ask a POI against me because they are my teammates. They are my allies. So could you give an example of burden of opposition? Burden of opposition in this motion of plastics is basically that banning plastic won't help saving the environment. If they are able to prove it, that is their burden, then they win this debate. Who's the chairman and what? There's no chairman in a debate as it's not a MUN. What? There's just judges. Judges' role in debate is basically deciding who win. So could you please explain flag posting? Flag posting? Um, I don't think that is a concept of APDs. So can who can give POIs? Anyone can give POIs. So can answering POIs when answering POIs, just opposition reply goes first. While answering POIs, I couldn't understand your question, Maya. Does asking POIs give you yes, POIs are encouraged. So answering POIs and asking for POIs could be a positive mark. Yes, Ishanvi. Okay, those who have raised their hands, if you still have questions, only then raise your hands.
Sir, I'm done with my question. Sorry, I forgot to put my hands.
Sure. Yes, Shanaya.
Yeah, so since this is APD, are we allowed to make our speech in a bilingual manner?
Depends on the tournament. Some majority tournaments are just English, but there are some kind of tournaments which are bilingual.
All
I do
right,
not
thank you.
know what the rules are for the tournament that is going to happen in the
I've
upcoming
only done
weekend.
MU, but in MUNs it's not necessary to only use English. You can be bilingual during AIPPM community, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, but in a UN or any kind of UNHRC, there's only English allowed. So yeah, it depends on the tournament format or the tournament rules. You can ask the OC what the rules they have for the upcoming weekend tournament.
All right.
Okay, Anaya, could you ask your question via voice because on chat it is not understandable at all. Okay, we will take a 2 minutes break. Just give me a second. 2 minutes break. Thanks for the questions, guys. I'm back. Okay, Araya. Arun, I wasn't speaking anything. I was on a 2 minutes break. Um, Araya, I think your question is about POIs being answered during reply. But remember, reply speeches, and during reply speeches, no POIs can be asked. Okay, so we'll move on with the second speakers. Now, Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Opposition, they have similar roles. There's no difference between them. They have similar roles for their respective teams. First thing that they have to do is clarify or defend something that was questioned by your opponents. So let's say the leader of opposition came in and found some of flaws in the case of government, or maybe they rebutted something, or maybe they gave their own argument, or their own definition, or their own something, right? The deputy prime minister can come in and clarify their stance, can still defend themselves or defend whatever the PM said by stating some of the reasons that they have, or maybe clarifying the arguments presented by the PM. Same goes for the deputy leader of opposition. They can do the similar when they are trying to defend their own team. The second thing that they have to do is rebut their opponents. The DPM and the DLO both will be rebutting each other's team. DPM will be reporting leader of opposition. DLO will be reporting prime minister and deputy prime minister. The last thing that they have to do is exchange team's case. Now, what does that mean? It's basically giving new arguments. Remember, these two speakers are the last speakers who are allowed to give new arguments. Further from here, no new arguments can be presented. So try to wrap up your arguments within these speeches itself. At least your new arguments, whatever new material you want to present, try to wrap that up here itself. Extend your case, meaning not just giving new arguments, but maybe giving new analysis, new examples, new reasoning to pre-existing arguments that was presented by your first speaker. Any question from here? I hope this was very self-explanatory.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Shreya.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a doubt here that is the second speaker here to briefly explain what the first speaker said and add more points to it.
They do not have to repeat or give a conclusion to or summary to what their first speaker said, but they can defend their case or defend their speech by saying that my whatever PM said was true and whatever flaw that the LO tried to present is true for whatever reason that you have. So it is just clarification or a defend that you are trying to do, not a summary of what PM said trying to give.
Sir, but summary as in I did not get it
As in you
exactly.
do not have to repeat, as in you do not have to repeat the whole speech of PM. You
But
do not have to repeat
sir,
anything that
but
he said, but defend it rather.
so sir, the second speaker has to like give their own opinions, or like what do they have to do exactly? Because
Opinion as
mostly
a
the
team.
second
Like basically it is a team, right? You have a three-member team. So you must have planned well during your prep time and divided the jobs of each speaker. In hand, your team must have had around 3 to 4 arguments, major arguments. The PM must have given one argument. So now the other two and three arguments are still left to be given, to be presented in front of the judges. So simply, you can just give those arguments. Just have a better planning during the prep time of what who's gonna say what and who's gonna talk about what. So that's, I guess, answers your question maybe.
okay, sir.
Okay, what if you are neither in both of these positions and have new or better points? If you are the web speaker, you cannot give new arguments. You can only give new points to pre-existing arguments. Remember, these people are your teammates. If you are a government whip, Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister are your teammates. So if you had a very great point, better than anyone else, you should have told them that during prep time and asked them to give that argument during their speeches because the government whip is not allowed to present new argument. So just have a better planning during prep time. How should we answer rebuttals? Essentially, in case we are not sure of what to say. Especially in case we are not answer rebuttals, or are you talking about PYs? I'm confused here because there's no compulsion to answer rebuttals. But if you are trying to defend yourself against a rebuttal, the best way to do it is to explain the judge how that rebuttal does not, on a very core basis, harms the principles of your argument or harms what the cause of your argument is. Let's say on the argument of environment and plastic, whatever rebuttal that the opposition gave, we can simply say that even if plastic has a very less impact on environment, we should still ban it because we have the power to do so, and it still will have a positive impact on the environment. Even if it is a 2% positive impact, we will still take it because there's not much negative impact of banning plastic. So yeah, that could look like an answer to a rebuttal. I think then the marks would also be affected if you are not proposing any arguments. No, Arjun, web speakers have their own role. We'll talk about it. Don't worry. So they still have an opportunity to score great marks. In one of the
Please
debates earlier in
repeat.
school, you were allowed to pass checks with better points to our teammates. Can we do that? Krishav, you're allowed to do so. Like you can pass checks, but again, like you have 25 minutes of prep time. Why won't you prep well and make sure that they do talk about those good points? But yes, you can pass checks while they are speaking if they forgot due to some bad luck. Could you please repeat your answer to my previous question? Uh, New arguments cannot be presented by web speaker. There's no negative marking. Do not think that they will suddenly lose the opportunity to score good because they have their own roles. This is their job, which we will talk about. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. So don't worry about that. They have a very extensive job role. Is it mandatory to answer? No, it is nothing is mandatory in a debate. So don't worry about that. Nothing is mandatory in an APD. The only thing which is mandatory is being respectful, even for POIs. It is up to you whether you want to answer a POI or not. Can we read from a sheet or do we have to improvise at the moment? You can read from a sheet, but remember, it's whatever you have written on the sheet should not sound like that has been copied from an internet source. Prabjot, yes, Prabjot. Okay, I guess that was it. Okay, so the third speaker role, the web speaker. Again, similar roles for the government web and the opposition web. The role of a web is to settle the debate in their favor, where the question comes in. If the speaker does not take your PY or report question, do you ask again after some time? If they have rejected it, then there's no need to ask because they explicitly said that they do not entertain any question anymore. So you just let it go because the judge did notice it. So judge would mark you a positive mark because you were trying to ask a question and you did ask a rebuttal to them. Okay, now on the web speakers. The role of web speaker is to settle a debate in their favor, basically end the debate, give a conclusion, give a summary. The main role of a web speaker is to give a lot of rebuttals and a good summary and a good analysis proving why they win. As written on third point, no new ideas are allowed. New rebuttals to existing ideas are, however, accepted and highly encouraged. So, rebuttals are very, very highly encouraged during group speakers and no new ideas. Although you can give extensions to pre-existing arguments. Whatever arguments that your teammates already presented, you can give new examples, new reasoning, new logical thinking, analysis to those. So whatever was already presented by your teammate, can you can still extend upon it. Maybe which meaning you can still give more reasons to prove how those points are better than your opponents. Second, as written on the fourth point, how to differentiate between new idea and an extension. New idea is not allowed, but an extension is. The litmus test to test what is a new material is very simple. Is the analysis or the new thing that you are trying to present derivable from the arguments already made by your teammates? If yes, if it is derivable, then it is not a new material. So it is allowed for you to give. Now the last point, which is where it gets confusing, and a lot of people raise question to that, which is basically in some circumstances it is acceptable for the web speaker, government web speaker, to introduce a new material, but it is highly unadvisable. But it is never allowed for the opposition web to give any new material. Why so? First of all, remember if the government web does present a new argument, you will not get a good marks. First thing, because that will show how mismanagement your team did. There was some sort of lack of planning during prep time, lack of work distribution, lack of understanding, lack of linkage. So a lot of negative marking could be there. Like negative impact on your score could be there. Second thing, why the opposition whip is not allowed to give even that? Because there's no one after opposition whip from the government side to answer that, to defend that, or to rebut that new material. Because after government whip, at least the opposition whip still has a chance to rebut that new material, right? So that is why opposition whip is not allowed to give any new material. Yes, Prabjot?
So I just wanted to ask, like you're saying that in some circumstances, like government or whip can introduce a new matter, but then you're saying it's highly unadvisable. So why is it even allowed?
It is allowed because logically opposition whip can still answer it. But why is it highly unadvisable? Because it shows how much lack on the planning and execution was there from the side of government. So yeah, for that very reason, that it is highly unadvisable, and secondly that it is allowed because opposition can still answer it.
Okay.
Can you please explain the fourth point again? Fourth point is basically for the yourself to understand what is a new material which is not allowed and what is a pre-existing argument's derivation or a new analysis to a pre-existing argument which is allowed. If you read it correctly, is the analysis that you're trying to present right now derivable from the arguments already made by your teammates? If so, then you can present it. But if it is not derivable, then it is a new idea, and that is why it is not allowed for you to give. That is a litmus test. So will the new arguments introduced by the GW be ignored or will be seen? It will be seen upon by the opposition party. I mean, again, it's their choice. They can ignore it. But if they ignore it, then it is their own negative point. Yes, Arjun?
So, like in the last point, it is written that it would never be acceptable for the opposition whip. So, like even if they ignore it, I don't think they should be given negative marking.
I mean, they ignoring the argument of government can be a negative thing for them, but them not being allowed to give a new material does not justify that, right? These are two different things. Them not being allowed and them not answering the rebuttal. This is completely different. So can you explain the bit speaker again? Sure, Shreya. Just give me a second. So could you give an example of derivative ideas in comparison to new ideas? Yes, sure. I will give an example. Let me just reshare my screen. Okay. For example, difference between a derivative and a new idea could be, let's say the government presented an argument about environment with respect to plastics. So the whips can come in, give new examples, new reasoning, proving how, or new analysis proving how plastic degrades environment. But if the government never talked about, let's say, the economical aspect of this, the economical benefit of this, then the whip cannot talk about some reasons, some analysis, or an argument proving how it is economically better to ban this. I hope that answers your question, Shreya Srivastava. Good. So how can we test whether the points given by the whip are inferred from the PM's points? I guess I hope that was answered within when I was answering Shreya's question. Is there any theme for the motions? They are random motions. Like there's no solid theme for an emotion that it should be about always environment or always feminism or always economy. It could be anything. Can someone be disqualified in it? Yes, someone can be disqualified in an APD if they are being disrespectful to others. Equity rules are there, which you guys will be briefed upon during the tournament. So don't worry about that. The very basic definition of how to not be disqualified is be respectful. Can you give few examples of motion related to which we would be asked? Uh, I don't know. That depends on the level of the tournament that you guys are having. As I said, as given the example, example could be like this house believes that plastic should be banned. Another example could be like this house believes that uh, a two-state solution is better in Israel-Palestine situation. Another motion could be like this house believes that uh, There should be equal pay for both men and women. So yeah, these three examples of motion are there. Can a web introduce new reasoning? Yes, Rima. They can present new reasoning for pre-existing arguments. Yes, it could be from any field, Arjun, for any field. Sports, economy, uh, social issues, uh, movies, fantasy, books, or maybe random stuff, religion, anything. Okay, before we end the session, we have the last thing, which is speaker roles. Sorry, reply speeches. Now, reply speeches are basically, yes, Siddharth.
Yeah, so you just mentioned like four or five perhaps controversial topics, and then you went on to say that those would be counted as disqualifications. So I just wanted to know to which extent we could actually stretch the sort of disqualification barrier. Like, not like I'm
What
going to do it,
controversial topics?
as in like Israel, Palestine, or people can be very
Mhm.
sensitive.
Oh,
So,
basically, when you are, let's say, a motion is this house believes that Israel should have attacked, or maybe this house believes that Israel attacking Palestine is a good thing. That is the motion. Very, very controversial motion. Now, you being government, you are like, oh, what I'm gonna say now. You can still give logical reasoning. Like, logically talking about something is not disrespectful, but you telling that they should attack because it's their right to do so, and because I love killing people, because I love seeing people die. No, that is where you're crossing the limits. That is where you're disrespecting someone. So that is difference. You can give logical reasoning and still be respectful to people. You can tell me reasons and yet be respectful. So I hope that understands to you.
okay,
Like
sure.
never target any community, never target someone that someone is better than others, some community is better than others. Never do that. Always be respectful to people, always be respectful to real life situations, uh, to communities, and to everyone, or social issues. Uh, just be respectful throughout the debate. Don't target anyone. And language, like always use respectful language when debating. No abusive language is allowed. No sarcasm about like death in general is not allowed. No sarcasm about social issues are allowed. Be very respectful, and no laughter is allowed about something, some issues, or some case scenario that happened in social, in real life scenario. So there are some questions on chat. So can you please explain the role of flip speaker once again? Okay, Arnav, I will do it. Is this is the fourth speaker? Yes, reply speaker is the fourth speech of your team, but there's no fourth speaker. Your PM or DPM will be giving the speech. Who is reply speaker? The one answer? No, Shreya. The one answering the PY is the one giving the speech at the very moment itself. For example, if I'm PM, I'm giving my speech and I'm being asked a PY, I will have to answer that PY. Maybe I have a right to not answer that PY. There's no fourth person on your team who would be answering PYs on your behalf. The reply speech is basically a fourth speech that is given by your own team. The PM or the DPM of your team gives the reply speech because your team still consists of only three people. Who's your PM, DPM, and whip? Now, who gives the reply? Basically, your PM or DPM gives the reply. To how to make sure that there is no one offensive statement. I mean, that is basic moral sense, I would say. Like, I don't know how to explain how we will know some sentence can be offensive and some can only. Just try to, when you're speaking something and when you're presenting something, try to look at with the lens of when you're sitting in as the part of that community itself. Let's say the motion is about feminism or females or the prosecution of females in the society. Now you're giving a very, very offensive statement could look like when a female sitting in front of you might feel offended by it. So always when you're giving a speech, try to uh, be in an environment where you are making yourself feel like the people of those communities that you're talking about are sitting in front of you. For example, how do you not give an offensive speech? Just imagine that your mom is sitting in front of you, and what are the things and how respectfully you talk in front of your mom. That is something you can give taken as a pathway to be respectful, like an example or a way where you can always be respectful. So, what do you do when you do not have much idea about the motion? If the motion is very, very out of your context and you don't know anything, you do not know anything, I don't think that scenario will come up because there are three teammates in a team. So maybe someone must have heard something else, start researching, Google it, read about it. You still have 25 minutes to research, right? There are a lot of time where it has happened with me too, when the motion has been very, very out of context and I do not know anything about the motion. So I ended up resorting to research and then taking ideas from it and then giving my speeches and arguments. So what is the length of reply speeches? Only 4 minutes as written in here. Oh, I guess my screen is not sharing. Wait a second. Yeah, it will be up in a second. Is there any abusive rebuttal? What do we do? If someone is being disrespectful, you can report it to the judges. But I don't think that scenario will ever come. I don't think someone will be very abusive to you. But remember, a couple of abusive words as a flow of your speech can still come. Like someone has a habit to say a couple of abusive words during a speech. But remember, an abusive word will be considered offensive and disqualification factor when you're abusing someone else. But if I'm just saying a couple of abusive words while giving my speech as an expression, but not against someone, it does not come within the metrics of equity or within the metrics of disqualification. It is a very, um, very complex scenario of a debate. So don't try to dig more upon what is disrespectful and what is not. You will learn a lot about it during the tournament and before the tournament. So this session is not about that. So let's not deviate from the main motive of this session. So what are these actions taken when there's that is upon tournament basis. Different tournaments have different actions. Do we get a brief idea about the motions which get be raised? You get the motion before the prep time. So you get your motion, exact motion, what the motion is before your prep time. So there's no brief idea, but you rather just get the motion itself. Give me a second, I'm trying to present the screen. Any verbal questions, if any? Else we move on with the reply speech. And the people telling me again and again to explain the speech again, I will do it. So don't worry about that. But we need to wrap with reply and POIs before that thing. Oh, I guess a couple of forward questions. Abhineet, yes.
Like who decides the motion? The opposition or like the government?
The organizing judges.
So like
They will
who
form the motions and they will give you three motions in total for a round. Three motions will be given to you and the opposition, and then both of the teams together choose one of those three motions.
and we like know the three motions that the judges will give us.
Yes, you know those three motions.
Okay, so we have to prepare accordingly.
You have to prepare only one motion, that you will decide along with the opposition team among
Okay.
those three motions.
Okay.
Yes, Shreya, Himadri.
Hello, my question follows from what you said about acceptance or rejection of the PM's definition by the leader of opposition. So, is it just a myth
Mhm.
that we have to take extreme stances, or there can be there can be a certain amount of logical agreement between the two teams?
Yes, usually, at least with the definition of the motion, the logical agreement does exist. On a very rare situations, the PM will come in and give very wrong definition. Only then you are supposed to reject the definition. Else, it is highly recommended for the opposition side to accept the definition if the definition was given very good. So rather than restating the definition again, when you already know that they gave a correct definition and wasting your own time, it's better for you to just simply say that I accept the definition. It saves your time and you can invest the time in something else.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Shreya, do you have any question else? You can down your hand. Good. Okay, so no questions for now. I will quickly tell you guys what a reply speeches is. Remember, reply speeches are of 4 minutes. No PYs are allowed within reply speech. Reply speech is basically the summary of debate where you tell us why you win. You give a biased oral justification. Oral justification, adjudication is basically justification of why you win. Now, what the word biased means is basically being selfishly biased about yourself, about your own team. So, the four points that you read here is basically no POIs, 4 minute speech, summarization of the debate, and giving a biased justification of why your team wins. That is the very simple definition of what a reply speech is. I guess that will be defined very deeply during the future speeches, sorry, future sessions that we'll have from Monday to Saturday, I guess. Um, so as a problem with this PPT. Yes, Arjun, I will share this PPT with the organizing committee and I hope they share it with you. By the end of the debate, do we reach any substantive conclusion? You try to reach a conclusion for your own biased way. Like the government will simply reach the conclusion saying that, so for all the discussion that we did, we understood that plastic is detrimental to the environment and that is why plastic should be banned. That is their conclusion. But the opposition have their own thought process of the conclusion of the debate in a biased way, a biased justification of why they win this debate. Um, Before I take any questions, the last thing is POI. POI is basically point of information, a question that you ask between the first and the sixth minute. Each speaker is recommended to take a POI, at least one POI, but it is not compulsory. So there's no negative marking. Lastly, it is of 15 seconds. So it should be a very concise question, very direct question. Do not try to ask very long questions because it just wastes your own time and the time of your opponents. Okay, I will take questions. Firstly, chat. So I've missed the half class. Will yes, the recording will be shared. Oh yeah, now that I remember that the recording will be shared, those who missed the section of speeches, please refer to the recording because that will be shared by the OC. Can we be asked about our sources for the points? No, this is not MUNs, so no one will ask you to present any sources. Obviously, do not give any vague stats that environment is 100% being affected by only plastic and nothing else. Now, if you say this very vague statement, an average human being would know that the stat that you just presented is wrong. So even though they will not ask you any source, but they will simply say that whatever stat that you presented is exaggerated or something which is wrong for sure, because they would know. Yes, Shirin?
So my doubt was that in the 7 minute speech, when 7 minutes are gonna end, do the judges like give you a warning, like a tap or something?
Yes, the judges will tell you who wins
Okay, thank you.
right after the debate ends. matlab, after they decide, like they take 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes to think about the debate, to think their justifications, and then tell who wins. Yes, Diksha.
So, apart from this PPT, in the kit which we have received,
Mhm.
in the speaker roles, we have a point flag posting constructives. So, what are those like? What's that?
Um, Flag posting something is basically you trying to just reinstate what was said as a constructive. Flag posting is basically giving highlight to it, giving a conclusion to it, presenting in a way that the judges definitely write it down because that is a main point of your debate. So yeah, that is a flag posting something.
Thank you.
Yes, Siddharth.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask that since the POI is for 15 seconds, what if we have a question that needs like a little more elaboration?
Uh, Try not to ask us such questions as through the means of POI. You can ask those questions through your own speech. If the question is so elaborative longer, ask within your own speech while you are giving your speech.
Okay.
Yes, Prajeet.
Sir, I wanted to ask about the teams. Will you make the team or will we decide
You will
among
decide
ourselves?
yourself. Usually in tournaments, you are allowed to choose your own team way before the tournament even started. Like you register along with your team. That is what happens. But I have no idea what are the rules and regulations of the upcoming weekend's tournament. That's up to OC.
Okay.
Yes, Ishanbi.
So I wanted to ask, like you said, we should not ask very elaborate questions because that kind of wastes the time. So, but if
Hmm.
you're asking a point of information to our opponent, and that is going to consume up their time, so they cannot give the counterpoints and arguments and all that. So, wouldn't it be
Hmm.
beneficial for us if they cannot present their points in
It
a more
will be,
elaborate?
yeah, it is beneficial for you, but it is not beneficial and fair for them, right? So that is why we have a restriction of 15 seconds. So if you ask let's say 45-second long question or 30-second long question, the judge will discredit your POI and will might even take action against you. The judge will stop you there itself that don't ask such long questions. So yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that rule is to protect the fairness within a debate. Yes, Shreya.
So I wanted to ask, suppose if a person has asked a POI and maybe their voice broke as it's an online debate
Hmm.
or it's unclear to us that what in reality they're asking. So can we ask them to repeat
Hmm.
their question or give clarification as to
Yes,
what they're asking?
uh, you can ask them to repeat that question.
Thank you.
Okay, now the chat. The point of info on the screen is regarding POIs, right? Yes, Arjun. Will the teams be created of suitable? Yes, Janvi. So if we are from the opposition, can we say something like to create stronger plastic and not use single plastic? Yes, you can talk about anything. Just give me good logical justifications to it. Plus, what should last 15 seconds? The question? The question should last 15 seconds. The answer can be as long as you want. Are we marked as an individual basis or as a whole team? You are marked as an individual basis, but you win as a team. Now, what that means? Basically, each speaker will get their own score. Then your team score will be added and then compared with the team score of your opponents. And then the team which has greater score will win. So even if in a scenario your team loses, maybe one of your speaker got the highest speech in the debate, It's just that your teammates did not do well, and that is where the cumulative score of your team ended up being lesser than your opponents. Also, I have yet not received that my offline kit. Shreya, that is a question that you asked the OC. I'm really sorry for that. Can we conclude the session? Yes, Prabjot, the session ends here itself. Nothing new will be told after this. Will the team see credit of yes, Shanvi? What if you do not know anyone? There is no one to make a team with. Then you can contact the OC to arrange teammates for you. And the gap between two pivots should be yes, Simadri. The gap between two pivots should be at least 20 seconds. Yes, Arjun.
So, so the team will be only of three people. So, and there are four positions of speaking. So a person will speak twice.
The first and the second speaker, one of those people can speak twice, either the prime
And
minister or the deputy prime minister.
okay, and regarding the marks, so will the marks be differently like for each position if this of the space
For
same
each
speaker?
position, yes. For each
Okay.
position, different marks is given. For reply speeches, there is a different score.
Okay.
So can you re-explain stakeholders once again? Shreya, I think I well explained stakeholders within the session. So the recording of the session will be given to you guys. Even after seeing that, you still get any question, you can ask the OC and they can convey that question to me and I will send you a voice note. The competition will be held between the same batches or I don't know, like OC. This question is also for the OC. So, okay, guys, I guess that's here that the session ends. You guys may leave. If you have any questions, I would rather want you to ask the OC. They can convey that question to me. And yeah, goodbye. Good night.